The Christmas Eve sky glowed a deep winter blue as snow drifted softly across the private terminal of North Star Aviation, the most exclusive airport hub on the East Coast. Inside, passengers hurried through security, wrapped in coats and stress, hoping to make it home before midnight. But in the middle of all the rushing, one woman moved with a calm, graceful certainty. Harper L. Monroe, tall, confident, and sharply dressed in a charcoal travel coat. Harper didn't look like someone who needed to worry about a seat on a plane. She didn't look like someone who needed to worry about anything at all. But what almost nobody knew, not the gate agents, not the passengers around her, and definitely not the flight crew, is that Harper wasn't just any traveler, she was Harper Monroe, global tech billionaire, founder of Monroe Tech Systems, and the legal owner of Skylux 9, the very aircraft everyone here was about to board, but she never advertised it. She preferred to move quietly. Invisible power, she believed, was the strongest kind, and if tonight went smoothly, she would land just in time to surprise her mother for Christmas morning. Harper glanced at her boarding pass, not because she needed it, but because it made her blend in. She pulled her suitcase behind her, simple, black, unbranded. She could have brought assistants, staff, security, but she loved to travel alone when she could. It reminded her of simpler days, back when she used to sit in cramped economy seats while juggling school, 3 jobs, and 1,000 dreams. Tonight, she wanted peace. She wanted silence. But the universe had different plans. As Harper reached the priority boarding area, she noticed something: an unusual tension among the crew. The captain wasn't at the counter greeting passengers. The flight attendants whispered urgently among themselves. The co-pilot kept glancing at the manifest, like something was wrong. Harper knew this aircraft inside out. She had helped design half the cabin layout herself. She could have stepped forward and introduced herself to settle whatever was going on, but she didn't. She liked seeing the world the way normal passengers did, so she waited. A gate agent finally called for boarding, voice trembling slightly as if the night had already defeated her. Skylux Flight 908 to Zurich. Now boarding our premium passengers. Harper stepped forward. Before she could scan her ticket, another passenger shoved past her, a sharply dressed man with too much aftershave and too much confidence. He glared at Harper like she was standing in his way. "This line is for premium only," he snapped. Harper blinked. "I know," the man scoffed. "Then you're in the wrong place." The gate agent looked mortified. "Sir, she is a premium passenger." But Harper didn't respond. She just gave the agent a small smile and gestured for the man to go ahead. She didn't care about egos. Not his. Not anyone's. The man strutted through. Harper scanned her, passed next, and walked down the private jet bridge, footsteps echoing quietly. She already smelled a familiar cedarwood and soft amber scent she had personally chosen for the aircraft interior. The moment she stepped inside, she saw the source of the crew's stress. Captain Ronald Pierce, a veteran pilot in his late 50s, known for strict procedures and stricter opinions. His uniform was pressed to perfection, but his expression was hard, stern in a way that made passengers shrink. A man who believed he owned the sky. Despite working for the woman who actually did, Harper respected him professionally, but she also knew he hated 2 things: anyone who questioned his authority, any passenger he assumed didn't belong. In first class, he turned the moment she entered. His eyes flicked from her face to her coat to her simple luggage, and a subtle, disappointed frown spread across his features. He didn't recognize her, not surprising. She rarely flew on the routes he captained, but his tone, clipped, dismissive, was unmistakable. "Ma'am," he said, stepping into the aisle as she moved toward her seat. "This section is reserved for priority executive travelers." "I'm aware," Harper replied calmly. He didn't move. Instead, he looked her up and down again, slower this time. "Let me see your boarding pass." Harper handed it to him, without hesitation. He barely glanced before handing it back, clearing his throat. "There seems to be some confusion," he said. "You've been assigned seat 2A. That's correct." "It's an error," he insisted. "We'll get you moved." "Moved," Harper repeated, eyebrows lifting. "To a seat more appropriate," he said carefully. "The one you're assigned is designated for company use. Reserved seating." Harper stared at him, expression neutral. "Reserved for who?" "For high-tier Skylux partners," he said. "I see. And you?" he pressed, folding his arms. "You're traveling alone?" "Yes." "No executive partner listed? No assistant? No corporate account? No captain?" Pierce nodded as if confirming his assumption that she didn't belong. "Right. Then you'll need to relocate to 14C, a standard seat." A hush fell across the first-class cabin. A couple paused mid-conversation. The man from earlier smirked. Like this proved something. One of the younger attendants looked horrified. But Harper didn't react, not with shock, not with anger, not with fear. She had seen this energy before, too many times. The "you don't look like you belong here" energy. The subtle superiority, masked as policy. The discomfort some people felt when a black woman occupied a space they believed was too elevated. Harper breathed in slowly. The captain waited, clearly expecting her to apologize for existing. Instead, Harper smiled politely. "I'll stay in 2A. Captain Pierce stiffened. "That is not your decision." "It actually is," Harper replied softly, but he raised a hand, cutting her off. "Ma'am, I do not want to make this a problem. Please take your proper seat, so we can finish boarding." "Proper seat." The words echoed. A flight attendant approached hesitantly. "Captain, maybe we should." Pierce silenced her with a look. Harper gently placed her hand on the seat back of 2A, still calm. "I'll sit here." The captain stepped closer, voice dropping. "If you don't move, I'll have security escort you off this aircraft. I am the authority on this plane. Do you understand?" Oh, the irony. But Harper didn't reveal anything, not yet. The setup was fascinating, as she wanted to see how far the captain would go. Passengers watched, sensing a confrontation. People pulled out their phones. The tension surged. Snow outside thickened, winds picking up, delaying the pushback. And then something unexpected happened. A young girl in RO3, maybe 10 years old, stood up. Her father tried to pull her back but failed. She walked right up to Harper. "I know who you are," the girl whispered loudly enough that several passengers heard. "My mom reads about you all the time. You're Harper Monroe. You're Harper Monroe." Captain Pierce's face drained of color. Passengers looked around in disbelief. The man from earlier gasped. Suddenly very small. Harper crouched slightly to meet the girl's eyes. "You're very smart," she whispered. The little girl smiled. "I want to build robots like you one day." Harper felt her chest warm. "You absolutely will." Before Harper could stand up, the girl's father approached nervously, apologizing, thanking her, smiling too much. But Harper just nodded and gently guided the girl back to her row. When she straightened, the captain was staring at her, confused, angry, embarrassed, unsure. "You should have informed us," he muttered. "Informed you of what?" Harper asked. "That you're," he swallowed hard. "That you're important." Harper tilted her head. "I didn't know importance needed a notification." The captain's jaw tightened. He was losing control of the situation, something he hated. And instead of backing down gracefully, he doubled down. "This is my aircraft," he growled. "And my safety protocols apply equally, regardless of celebrity." Harper blinked at him. "You're a crafty, yes?" Her voice remained soft, steady, polite. "Captain, the aircraft registration number is HLM 9009. He froze. Harper continued. "HLM, my initials." Murmurs spread. The captain's throat bobbed as he swallowed. "That doesn't. It stands for Harper Lee Monroe," she said gently. "Skylux 9 is my plane." Gasps echoed throughout the cabin. The co-pilot, standing by the door, suddenly looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Two flight attendants stared at Harper with respect, one with awe, one with dread for what the captain had just done. Captain Pierce's face flushed deep red, but Harper still wasn't angry. She wasn't even raising her voice. She simply stepped closer and whispered just loud enough for him to hear, "Let's continue boarding. I don't want the passengers delayed." The captain nodded stiffly, but inside, something dark flickered. Humiliation. He wasn't done. He wasn't ready to surrender control. And moments later, as more passengers boarded, he made a call that would change everything and turn this Christmas Eve flight into a disaster waiting to happen. A decision Harper would not see coming. A decision that would put the entire flight at risk. A decision that would expose far more than just bias. And none of the passengers had any idea what was about to unfold. The cabin lights dimmed to boarding mode, soft gold halos glowing above each seat, but the atmosphere inside Skylux 9 was anything but calm. The passengers felt it. The crew felt it. Harper felt it most of all. Captain Pierce had stepped away after their confrontation, but his humiliation laced the air like static. He had been challenged publicly by a woman he had dismissed, by a passenger he had nearly thrown off the plane, and for men like Ronald Pierce, humiliation wasn't just uncomfortable, it was fuel. Harper settled into seat 2A with quiet composure, the leather cushioning familiar beneath her. She set her bag down gently, removed her coat, and looked out the window. Snow swirled against the glass in silver ribbons. She wasn't angry. Not yet. She'll simply observant, watching the captain stalk toward the cockpit with clipped steps, shoulders tight, jaw sharper than the winter wind outside. The door shut behind him with a stiff metallic click, a click that felt final. The flight attendants resumed boarding tasks, though with visible unease. Emmett, the youngest attendant, kept glancing toward Harper like she wanted to say something. Daniel, the senior purser, tried to keep his professionalism, but even he shot nervous looks at the cockpit door. The tension wasn't subtle. "It's vibrated." Passengers whispered. Phones hovered. AIs darted. Harper tucked her hands into her lap. She had been in boardrooms with people 10 times more dangerous than an insecure pilot. But this wasn't a boardroom. This was a 40,000-foot, sealed too, controlled by the very man she had embarrassed. The risk wasn't ego. The risk was power. And Captain Pierce loved power by the time general boarding finished. The aircraft hummed with uncomfortable anticipation. The man from earlier, the one who shoved past Harper, sat stiffly in 3C, avoiding eye contact. The father and young girl whispered happily about meeting Harper Monroe, row 14, where the captain had tried to send Harper, filled with 2 bickering businessmen and a woman with a screaming baby. Harper watched them, wondering what Captain Pierce had planned by insisting she sit there. She could imagine make the billionaire as uncomfortable as possible, strip her dignity, punish her for daring to resist. But Harper didn't dwell on it. She was far more concerned with what he was planning now, because the cockpit door hadn't opened. Once since his return, at 7:43 p.m., the co-pilot, First Officer Lucas Ward, finally emerged to perform the standard pre-departure cabin check. He forced a smile, but Harper saw the storm behind it, nervous, conflicted, ashamed when he reached Harper's row. He hesitated. "Ms. Monroe," he said quietly. Harper turned her head slightly. "First Officer." He swallowed. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "I didn't know you were scheduled on this flight." "Neither did the captain," Harper replied gently. Lucas looked down. "He took it personally, I noticed. You shouldn't have spoken to you that way." "I agree." Lucas paused, then took a small step closer, lowering his voice even further. "He's not stable right now." Harper's expression didn't change, but inside her pulse stilled. "Explain." "He's had a difficult week," Lucas said. "He lost a corporate leadership bid. He's been tense, on edge tonight. Pushed him over. Because of me." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Harper leaned back. "Is he fit to fly?" Lucas hesitated too long, then barely audible. He insisted. "He is." Insisted. Not confirmed. Not proven. Insisted. A chill knot from the winter air broke across Harper's shoulders. Lucas cleared his throat and forced a more official tone. "We're departing shortly. Let us know if you need anything." "Thank you," she said. He walked away. What his shoulders were tight, like a man caught in the middle of something he couldn't control. At 7:59 p.m., the intercom chimed. Captain Pierce's voice filled the cabin comm on the surface, but with a metallic edge beneath the words. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We will be departing shortly. Please take your seats and prepare for takeoff." Passengers relaxed, settling in. But Harper didn't, because she heard it. The subtle strain, the clipped pronunciation, the faint tremor. A voice she recognized as defensive rather than confident. A voice from a man who felt challenged and wanted revenge. As the doors sealed, Emma, the nervous flight attendant, approached Harper again. "Ms. Monroe," she whispered, kneeling, slightly so no one else would hear. May I tell you something?" Harper gave her a nod. Emma's eyes flicked toward the cockpit. "He's angry. I mean really angry. I've flown with him for 2 years. I've never seen him like this." "Is he threatening anyone?" Harper asked. "Not directly," Emma said. "But he's snapping, blaming the crew for boarding incorrectly, asking why someone like you got C tour." Harper inhaled slowly. "I appreciate the honesty." Emma lowered her voice even further. "Please be careful." Harper touched her hand lightly. "I am." Emma left to finish safety preparations, but she kept glancing back every few minutes like she was afraid Harper would disappear. The engines roared to life, vibrating through the frame of the aircraft. Snow thickened outside. Wind picked up harsh, enough that the jet wobbled slightly at the gate. Weather advisory warning flashed on the monitors. Winter storm alert delays possible. Passengers groaned. The man in 3C muttered, "Great. Just what we need." Harper, however, wasn't thinking about the weather. She was thinking about the choices Captain Pierce might make. A pilot in an unstable emotional state. A storm brewing. A billionaire he despised sitting 10 feet from the cockpit door. The rising action wasn't subtle. It was a slow, tightening rope. The aircraft pushed back from the gate, engines humming deeper as it taxied through swirling snow. Harper watched frost creep across the window edges, glittering under runway lights like tiny stars. Daniel, the lead attendant, passed her row briefly. "We're doing our best to keep the cabin calm," he whispered. "Let us know if you need anything." "Has the captain said anything more?" Harper asked. Daniel's face tightened. "Only that we're taking a more assertive route to beat the storm." Harper's eyebrows lifted. Assertive? Daniel nodded grimly. He refused to elaborate. That wasn't like Pierce. He normally bragged loudly about flight plans. Silence, coming from a man like him, wasn't professionalism, it was concealment. The plane reached the runway. The engines surged, and then a jolt. A hard one. Passengers gasped. The overhead bins rattled. A baby cried. Harper gripped the armrest, not out of fear. The calculation. Something was wrong. The engines weren't throttling up gradually. They were roaring too fast, too aggressively. Emma hurried down the aisle to reassure passengers, but even she looked pale. The intercom crackled, then the captain's clipped voice cut through. "Apologies for that. Just compensating for crosswinds." But Harper knew better. There were crosswinds, yes, but not enough to justify that violent thrust. He was pushing the aircraft. Harder than necessary. Harder than safe. Punishment disguised as piloting the wheels. Lifted the cabin, tilted, the lights flickered briefly and on paper, but combined with his erratic behavior, not normal. Harper watched the sky swallow the city lights beneath them. Her heartbeat steady, her mind calculating probabilities. She wasn't a pilot, but she had funded enough aviation projects to understand flight dynamics intimately. And what she felt wasn't instability from weather. It was instability from control. 10 minutes into ascent, turbulence. Hit sharp, sudden. Passengers clutched armrests. Drinks spilled. Someone shouted. Emma tried to help, but the plane shook again. Jolt. Then another. But Harper's eyes narrowed. These weren't random. They were rhythmic, like abrupt, unnecessary course corrections. The captain was jerking the plane intentionally. Is everything okay? The father in row 3 asked Emma anxiously. Emma forced a smile. Just rough air from the storm. But Harper and Emma locked eyes for a split second, both knowing it wasn't just the storm. At 18,000 feet, the seatbelt signs remained on. At 22,000 feet, they flickered again. At 25,000 feet, the cabin grew restless. Finally, Emma approached Harper a third time, pretending to offer her a drink. She leaned in. He's not letting us communicate with the cockpit. Harper's breath caught, not in fear, but realization. He locked the door. Harper whispered. Emma nodded subtly. Yes, earlier than protocol allows. Harper leaned back slowly. He's isolating himself. Emma's voice trembled. He's isolating the plane. Meanwhile, in the cockpit, Captain Pierce sat rigidly, jaw clenched, staring at the instruments through the dim bluish lighting. Lucas, the co-pilot, tried to maintain composure. Captain, let's level out. Turbulence reports say. Aware of the turbulence reports, Pierce snapped. Lucas tried again. Passengers are terrified. That's not my concern. Lucas swallowed hard. They're your responsibility. No, Pierce growled, leaning forward. My responsibility is authority. And someone tried to undermine that today. Lucas froze, realizing exactly what this was becoming. This isn't about authority, Lucas said slowly. This is about her. Pierce's hands tightened on the yoke. She humiliated me. She didn't. He escalated, Lucas said. And you're risking your license. I don't care about my license, Pierce shouted. The plane jerked. Lucas grabbed his controls to compensate. Ron, you need to stop. Don't touch my controls, Pierce barked. Lucas stared at him in horror. You're not fit to fly right now, Lucas whispered. Pierce's eyes went sharp, dark, unhinged. Then maybe you're not fit to sit in this cockpit. Lucas's stomach dropped. Pierce wasn't speaking metaphorically back in the cabin. Harper looked around, assessing the aircraft like a chessboard. She wasn't panicking, she was planning. Something was about to break, and she needed to be readied up because Captain Pierce hadn't just lost control of his temper. He was close to losing control of the plane. The flight dipped again. Turbulence sharper this time. Drinks fell, a tray clattered. Passengers screamed. Daniel grabbed a handrail. This is getting dangerous. Harper rose from her seat. Emma rushed toward her. Miss Monroe, please stay seated, please. Harper lowered her voice. Emma, listen. Something is wrong in that cockpit. Very wrong. Tears pricked at Emma's eyes. I know. Is there any way to override the door? Emma shook her head. Only the captain can unlock it, or the co-pilot. Emma swallowed. If he can. That was enough confirmation for Harper. The situation was no longer tense. It was critical. The plane jolted harder than ever. Gasps erupted. The lights flickered again. The young girl in row 3 cried out. Her father held her tight. It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. But Harper heard the fear in his voice. Too much depended on one unstable captain who felt threatened by the presence of a black billionaire woman who didn't bow to his ego. And Harper knew this wasn't over. The rising action was building like the storm outside. She took a slow breath. Because the next part of this flight was about to get much, much worse. And before the night ended, the entire world would know. The cabin lights flickered again, this time with a sharp electrical snap that made passengers gasp. The aircraft lurched sideways, a violent swing that tossed loose items into the aisle and slammed luggage against overhead bins. Screams erupted. A cup flew past Harper's arm and shattered against the opposite wall. Daniel grabbed a handrail. Everyone stay seated, seatbelts on. Emma rushed to help a crying toddler, her hands trembling so badly she nearly dropped the oxygen mask she was holding. Harper steadied herself against her seat, mind racing. This wasn't turbulence. This was chaos created from the cockpit. And if she didn't intervene, this plane wasn't going to make it to Christmas morning. She turned toward Emma. Get me access to the flight phone. Emma's eyes widened. That line goes straight to the cockpit. Exactly. Emma hesitated only a moment before nodding, then hurried toward the forward galley. She returned with the handset, tucked discreetly behind a safety manual. Yeah, her voice cracked. I don't know if he'll answer. Harper took the handset and dialed the cockpit extension, pressing it to her ear. 1 ring 2 3. For a click. Then silence. Harper spoke evenly. Captain Pierce, this is Harper Monroe. Nothing is only faint breathing on the other end. I can feel what you're doing to this aircraft, Harper continued, and so can everyone else. Still nothing, not a word, just a cold, rhythmic breath. I'm giving you an opportunity to correct your actions, Harper said softly, before this becomes something you cannot undo. A long pause, then a voice raw, cracked from fury. You don't own me. Harper remained still. I own the aircraft, not the people. You humiliated me, Pierce hissed. In front of everyone. You humiliated yourself, Harper replied calmly. Wrong words. He snapped. The line went dead, and at that exact second, the plane dropped. A violent, breathtaking plunge that ripped screams from every throat. The cabin tilted. Oxygen masks trembled in their compartments, and the aircraft shook like a toy thrown by the wind. Emma fell to her knees. The young girl in row 3 clutched her father and sobbed uncontrollably. The man in 3C shouted, "He's going to kid us." Harper gripped the seat back as gravity yanked downward. Her ears popped, her stomach lurched. Her pulse stayed steady. Not fear-focused. This wasn't weather. This wasn't chance. This was Captain Pierce pulling the aircraft into a dangerous descent out of spite, out of ego, out of the need to reassert power. A man who felt small and chose to make the entire plane feel smaller. Inside the cockpit, Lucas Ward slammed his hand against the control panel. "Run. What are you doing?" "Level the aircraft," Pierce growled through clenched teeth. She needed to understand. "This isn't a lesson," Lucas shouted. "This is attempted." Pierce cut him off. "Sit back in your seat. That's an order." "No," Lucas said, voice shaking but firm. "I'm taking control." Pierce turned on him, eyes wild. "You're not taking anything." Lucas reached for the control column. Pierce shoved him back. The plane lurched again. A lurch blared. Stall warning. Wind shear. Terrain ahead. Snow clouds swallowed the windows. The sky flashing with white streaks of ice. Lucas wrestled against the yoke, fighting to stabilize the aircraft. But Pierce kept shoving him away, desperate to maintain dominance. "You think you can save them?" Pierce snarled. "You're as powerless as she is." Lucas's heart hammered. "This isn't about her anymore. There are children on board." Pierce slammed the throttles forward. "Then they'll learn respect too." Back in the cabin, panic reached a breaking point. Passengers prayed, screamed, called out names of loved ones. A woman clutched her stomach, crying that she couldn't breathe. A man tried to unbuckle and stand, only to be thrown backward by another sudden dip. Emma struggled to stand, voice shaking as she shouted, "Please remain seated. Please, please." Harper rose. Emma's eyes widened. "Ms. Monroe, you can't be up. I need to get to the cockpit. You'll be thrown across the cabin and brace me." Emma blinked in shock. "Brace you?" Harper grabbed the top of her seat. "I need leverage. Help me walk." Emma swallowed her fear and nodded. Together they moved one step at a time, Harper gripping seatbacks, Emma holding her arm, the plane shaking around them. Daniel saw them and rushed over. "Ms. Monroe, what are you doing?" Stopping him, Harper said simply, "You can't open that door." "I don't need to open it," Harper replied. "I need him to hear me." She reached the forward bulkhead, inches from the cockpit door. She braced against the wall as the aircraft shook violently again. Her hair whipped across her face, her coat flapping as oxygen panels rattled above her. She lifted the intercom handset. The PA crackled. Every terrified passenger fell silent. Harper's voice filled the cabin, calm, steady, resonant, unshaken. Pierce. Passengers froze. Even through panic, they sensed something had shifted. Someone had stepped into leadership. Someone who wasn't afraid. Harper continued, "I know you can hear me." Silence. "I know what you're doing, and I understand why. You feel as though you've lost control tonight." The plane shuddered again, but Harper didn't waver. "You think you were disrespected, devalued, overlooked." A few passengers looked up despite their tears. "You interpret authority as worth, and you believe that by punishing one person you regain that worth." Her tone sharpened. "But you are not punishing me." The plane tilted left, lights flickering. Passengers screamed. Harper raised her voice, not shouting. "But commanding, you are punishing innocent people who trusted you with their safety." Cockpit remained silent, but every passenger listened. "You wanted recognition," Harper said, "but you will not gain it through fear." The aircraft jerked again. Emma grabbed Harper's arm so she wouldn't fall. Harper continued speaking, voice steady as steel. "You are not losing control because of me." She paused. "You are losing control because of you." A gasp rippled through the cabin. "And if you continue this," Harper continued, "you will not only destroy your career." She leaned closer to the intercom. "You will destroy lives." Passengers held their breath. "And I know," Harper said softly, "that you don't want that weight on your conscience." Silence, deep, heavy, waiting. Then the plane stabilized. Slightly, barely, but noticeable. Lucas had heard the message too. He used that brief moment to seize his chance. He shoved Pierce's arm away. He grabbed the controls. He engaged. "Override?" Pierce roared in fury, swinging toward him, but Lucas kicked the autopilot switch and slammed the emergency transponder. The cockpit filled with warning tones. The cabin shuddered again, but it was leveling. Slowly, barely, but rising. Out of the dive, passengers gasped. Some cried. Some whispered prayers through shaking breaths. Emma covered her mouth, tears falling. Arbor exhaled in a relief, but readiness, because she knew Captain Pierce wasn't finished. Not yet. He wasn't going down without a final, dangerous attempt to reclaim control. And the next move he made would determine the fate of everyone on board. As the cabin settled into an uneasy silence, the pilot finally returned from the cockpit, stiff posture, eyes cold, still convinced he was in the right. He paused at Maya's row, cleared his throat, and forced out the most insincere line imaginable. "Ma'am, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. We're all under pressure today." He didn't even make eye contact. Maya stayed calm, elegant, controlled. The kind of control that makes everyone else nervous. But before she could respond, something unexpected happened. The cabin door opened, and another pilot walked in. Older, confident, crisp uniform, Silver Captain Bus. He scanned the cabin, his eyes landing immediately on Maya, and then on the pilot who had tried to move her. "Captain Kingston," Maya greeted with a soft nod. The cabin audibly gasped. Everyone knew who he was, the senior chief pilot for the entire fleet, and he bowed his head respectfully. "Miss Sterling," he said, addressing her by her full last name. "We received a notification in the cockpit about an irregular interaction on board. I came personally." The younger pilot stiffened. "Sir," Captain Kingston raised a hand, silencing him like a father scolding a child. Then he faced the passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to clarify something essential. This aircraft and its holiday route exists because of the investment and generosity of Ms. Maya Sterling, our company's majority shareholder." The cabin exploded with whispers. Phones came out. Mouths dropped. Maya sighed. "I didn't want attention. I wanted a peaceful Christmas flight with my family." Captain Kingston nodded. "And you should have had one." Turning sharply, he addressed the crew. "Your behavior, your tone, and your assumptions were unprofessional, discriminatory, and unacceptable." Effective immediately, but Maya gently raised a hand. "Wait." Silence fell like a curtain. Everyone leaned in. "Not here to humiliate anyone," she said softly. "I'm here to make sure no one else ever again experiences what I did. Not on my plane, not in my company, not in my world." Then she looked the young pilot in the eyes for the first time. "I don't need your apology," she said. "I need your understanding." The pilot swallowed hard. His voice cracked. "I understand," he said. "I judged you. I didn't see who you were. I just saw." He couldn't even finish a sentence. "It's not about seeing who I am," Maya corrected. "It's about treating every passenger with respect, regardless of who they are." He nodded, shame flooding him. The passengers clapped, not wildly, but deeply, like they understood they had just witnessed something bigger than a mid-flight argument. Captain Kingston stepped forward again. "Ms. Sterling, may I escort you to the flight deck? There's something you should see." Curiosity flickered in her eyes. "What is it?" When the cockpit door opened, Maya stepped inside and froze. On the display screen was a Christmas Eve message, a surprise from her board of directors. "Thank you, Maya," the video said. "Because of you, thousands of families got to fly home this holiday season. You didn't just save this airline, you rebuilt it." Her eyes saw. For the first time all day, she felt the weight of the moment. She returned to the cabin with a quiet smile as she sat down. A little girl across the aisle whispered loudly to her mom, "Mommy, is she a superhero?" Maya winked at her. "Only on weekends," she joked. The cabin erupted with warm laughter, and the tension lifted completely. The flight attendants moved through the aisle offering complimentary hot chocolate, the good kind, not the powdered stuff, while passengers talked about the moment they would never forget. The pilot who had tried to move her stayed silent the rest of the flight, thinking, learning, and as the plane descended through the snowy Christmas Eve clouds, the captain made one final announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying with us, and thank you to the woman who made this flight possible. We are honored, truly honored, to have Miss Sterling on board." The passengers applauded again, but the twist. Just before landing, Maya received a message on her phone, an urgent alert from the corporate office. "We discovered something. The pilot who confronted you, he recently filed a secret complaint to try and block the airline's initiative. He thought you were behind it. He didn't know you were the owner." Maya exhaled slowly, the corner of her mouth lifting. "Oh," she whispered. Then today was destiny, because by the time the wheels touched the runway, her decision was already made. Not out of anger, but leadership. She would place him into a new role, mandatory retraining, direct supervision, and an inclusion program he would help lead, not fight against. His punishment wasn't humiliation, it was growth, and that was the real twist. A billionaire didn't destroy him, she rebuilt him, just like she rebuilt the airline. just like she rebuilt the future of every flight with her name on it. The end, or maybe, just the beginning.